Can you hear it okay? Is it coming through?
Yeah,
that's
wonderful.
Perfect.
Really fantastic.
Thanks. That
Very nice. Very good.
Sister Bernadette.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm here. I'm great, thank you. Who am I speaking to, Katie, is it?
This is Kate. Yeah, I can't see you if you want to put on your video, a video camera.
I think you have me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, perfect. And Betty, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Can you see me?
I can't see you yet, Betty. So if you want to, there should be a little camera at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, yeah. Is that okay now?
No.
It might be coming.
It's
Not
sorry.
yet.
There's a little icon with a plus and a minus on it and my name on it at the bottom of the screen. Do I have to hit something there?
There should be another one that has a picture of a video camera and it says start video.
No, I don't have that at all. I don't know.
Are you on your phone?
No, I'm on the
Okay.
iPad.
Okay. If you tap the iPad screen, it should come up.
Oh, wait till I see now. There's a whole lot of gadgets on the top. Oh, they're gone again. They don't last too long.
Yeah, it's annoying.
No,
it's
they
annoying.
keep going away. I can't keep control of this thing at all.
You have to tap.
You carry on anyway, and I'll enjoy what I'm hearing. Go on.
Bridge, 'tis a long time since I saw you last. God save all here. How are you this long time? No, thanking you, but I won't come in, for I must make haste with my journey. Tell me, Bridge, did you hear tell of the sighting of the Blessed Virgin? In Cork it was. I heard tell she appeared in the chapel on the altar and made as if there was something to be taken from there, some ashes. I heard it from a man that brought them from Limerick. It's important, Bridge. It's to keep away the sickness that's spreading, an awful sickness, the like of which we haven't seen here since... Well, you know what? Our little Tom was taken by typhus. So I'll do all in my power to make sure that doesn't happen again, to us or any of our neighbours. The apparition said that I'm to give you these ashes and you're to divide them in 4 and bring them to 4 more houses. It's the only thing that'll save us, she said. For the love of God and His Blessed Mother, Bridge, will you do as I ask? Promise me. I have to go on now to Maher's, for I think they're the next closest to my place. Blessings of God with you, Bridge. Must be off. Mind yourself.
Marie, we are waiting. Okay, I might let you briefly talk, Marie. I just need to send a link to someone who can't get in.
Yeah, if you do the link, that'll be cool. Thanks so much for coming. I'm really pleased to be here with you all, and I think I spoke to you all and some people I videoed. It's really, really nice to see you all. Thank you. I know we're here to chat about your experience of being part of this art piece. And you've probably seen now it's been called a kind of cyber vault of knowledge, cultural law and wisdom, which I think is quite a good description. And there's 8 sections, and in a lot of the section there's a vault, which is a bit like looking under the floorboards or kind of opening the closet and seeing what's inside. It's partially hidden intentionally. I think it was 66 people who took part in all different ways and contributed from different parts of the world. If I can remember now, there was historians and folklorists, and then there were musicians and artists and people who wrote. There were some people of faith and different faiths. There were healers, there were some herbalists and a druid as well. There were storytellers, and some informal storytellers and some that do it for a living. There were elders, there were spiritualists, and there were people who tell the future, or who, I suppose, are life tellers of potential futures. And then there were academics and scholars, and quite a few crossovers in amongst those as well. So it's just really brilliant to have a cross-section here. It's important to say the Cork Midsummer Festival commissioned the work, and Kath's there. Hi, Kath. And in partnership with the Sirius Art Centre, and Miguel's there. Hi, Miguel.
What interested Cork Midsummer Festival in commissioning the Day of the Straws?
Basically, we'd sort of, March, if you think about March 2020, we were sort of in the middle of lockdown. By April, essentially, we had no festival, certainly in terms of the festival we were planning for June 2020. So we really had to sort of go back to the drawing board. And I think there was a feeling there from the board and from the director, Lorraine May, that we needed to do something. We wanted to connect with people.
We had to completely reimagine the festival. But with that came great innovation and thinking, such as a project like the Day of the Straws. I think the project is very democratic in its approach. It allows the viewer to experience parts of it at their own pace, in their own time, in a very non-pressurized way. It's also very democratic in the sense that there's such a myriad of different voices involved. I think it conveys something very atmospheric. It's also designed to disrupt. It's designed to make the viewer question what they're seeing, what's real and what isn't real.
My name is Miguel Amado. I'm the director of Sirius Art Centre in Cove, which partnered with Kath and Marie, Kate, Katie, Lucia, and everyone else on the initial stages of development of the project and in its realization. And we are also working on further ideas with Marie and Kath on potential further developments of the project.
And important to say that my major collaborator was Katie Holly. So you have to put your camera on there, Katie, so we can see you. Hi, Katie, the amazing writer. So great to have you here.
Hi everyone, it's really nice to meet you all. My name is Katie Holly. I'm a writer from Charleville in County Cork. I was lucky enough to write and produce theatre shows for Cork Midsummer Festival, and they approached me through Kath this year about collaborating with visual artist Marie Brett. And I was really intrigued initially because I've never done that kind of work before. I didn't know how it would work or what kind of work it would produce. But once I heard that the story that they were working around, or that inspired the whole project, apparently originated in my hometown, and I had never heard anything about it. So I was quite fascinated by that a legend could be lost to the local people, but could still be found and revived.
I don't believe the event happened at all. Oh no, I absolutely don't believe it happened at all. I believe it's a fabrication. I don't think anybody that we've mentioned it to kind of just laughed and they don't believe it happened at all. It's a myth.
My name is Mary O'Shea. This is my testimony. My sister Margaret, my sister Kathleen and myself went to Rossmore Grotto in Tregeela, County Cork in 2017 on the 30th anniversary of the first apparition to a young girl there. It was my first time there. We were saying the rosary at 3 p.m. Some people were seated and some were standing. I was standing directly in front of the grotto, The statue of our Blessed Mother was at a distance and about 20 steps up, among trees and flowers and candles lighting on the steps. I was looking at the face of the statue. I could see Our Lady's face clearly, and I thought, she's looking at me. I could see her eyes. Then I saw her lips moving, and I thought to myself, she's praying. I kept looking at Our Lady for a good while, for while there were 2 decades of the Rosary at least being said. At one time, I felt downward pressure on my shoulders from the back, and I steadied myself to prevent myself from falling.
Well, you see, I found I'm not very good technically, so I haven't gone into the whole thing of Day of the Straws. I have to do it in small sessions. So to be honest, I haven't seen it all. Mary's better, she was able to see more of it, but I couldn't. I found it was a tremendous piece of work, but I wasn't technically equal to it.
Yeah, kind of.
But I found in the beginning too. Sorry,
Betty,
go on.
No, I'm finished. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I found in the beginning too, it was hard to sort of do it all, and then I kept going into it, and there were so many tangents and everything. You know, I thought it was just unbelievable. But I think one of my favourite pieces was Marie, your interview with Eddie Linehan. And I thought I thought he really impressed me, you know, and he has so many stories and all that, you know. I just I'm getting away from the your question.
So I suppose I'm asking you in a roundabout way about the stories you know that are to do with physical healing and maybe, you know, folk medicine, and the link with the clairvoyant or psychic, or would it be a spiritual, would that be the right term, or a supernatural aspect?
I think this particular now pandemic is a particularly fertile ground for quacks of all kinds. And the television will bring all kinds of things out of the woodwork. And you can bet your life, as soon as this pandemic passes, and I hope it does soon, most of these, 99.999% of these, will fade into oblivion again. It's bringing out all kinds of sentimentality, naturally. But
Katie, I might actually ask you a little bit about, because everybody really loved this piece, and I think Marie, you had something that you wanted to add about this as well.
I mean, I remember, Katie, you and I were talking about research I'd done early on in terms of what people were doing all over different parts of the world, and some of the really interesting things they were doing. It links back in terms of folk cures, and some of the things people were doing were remedies and some were preventative. And I was just fascinated, and then shared some with you, and you thought, yeah, we could do something here. And I didn't have. Then you were suggesting a WhatsApp, and I was thinking, oh yeah, that'd be brilliant, because people might think it's an actual WhatsApp. And so some people are saying to me now, this is like, well, who did you get it from? Who are the two friends? You know? I just love the way you made it contemporary.
Yeah, well, I suppose all the pieces that I contributed were about communication, were about how people were communicating during lockdown about COVID, because it brought me back to the idea of the Day of the Straws, when the one person went out to 4 houses with the ashes, and then people from those houses went out to 4 other houses, and that was obviously a massive way of communicating. So I started thinking about how was I communicating during lockdown, and like a lot of people, I was suffering from anxiety about the pandemic and worrying constantly that I wasn't doing enough to protect myself and people around me. So I wasn't interested in talking on the phone, because, you know, when you're anxious, you don't want to talk. So I wasn't meeting people, because no one was meeting anyone. And then the government asked at one of their press conferences that people stop spreading these rumours about COVID via WhatsApp. So that got me thinking about all the untrue information that I had been sent, both believable and unbelievable, and that Marie had researched and sent on to me. And I'd read a lot of material about people who were suggesting they had preventative or curative measures against COVID. And I just started to build this conversation between two people on WhatsApp. And we wanted it to be as casual and flippant as WhatsApp conversations can be, but with that dark element of the outside world kind of creeping in and the worries creeping in, and hopefully with a little bit of humor thrown in also. Because so many of the COVID cures that we were reading just seemed so strange and unusual.
Eugene, for people who don't know about the origin of how you started making these sticks, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Now, as you look at them, they were digitized to reflect each other, so they're mirror images of each other there. And the digitizing is just fantastic what they've done with them. The sticks came from the old shillelagh, which was an Irish fighting stick. It was a stick that was used by rural people at fairs, at markets. It was also used in faction fighting. And then over time, the art of the stick changed from a utilitarian stick to a decorative stick, whereby the heads were mainly fashioned from all sorts of things. And the ones that you see on your screen at the moment, most of them are done by, the ones that we picked out were done by a guy by the name of Pat O'Sullivan. Pat O'Sullivan would be very much a natural artist. He's got great manual dexterity, great foresight into seeing the sticks. In fact, this week he sent some photographs of badgers on the top of a stick, and it's just unbelievable. Well, I actually have one or two here that I can put up on the screen. I can just show them to you, if that suits you, Kate, yeah. You know? Yeah. This one here, this is a blackthorn stick. It's quite a long blackthorn stick. Yeah. You see it here. And on the top of it, there's an E head carved on the top. And you can just see there as I turn it around. So that would be a traditional decorative stick used mainly for competition. We get our materials from all sorts of sources. This here is a hazel stick. Again, I'll start at the bottom, and it's got a brass ferrule at the bottom. And this stick is dyed. It's the traditional hazel would be slightly less brown than this. This one was stained, believe it or not, with coffee. And there's a brass ferrule fitted here. And this is a piece of spalted beech. The staining that you see here is a fungus that grows in the tree. And this at the top is a piece of bog oak, Irish bog oak, probably thousands of years old.
Does not have any other bodily sign linking him to the moon rhythm. He has no flow of blood.
And Eugene, maybe I should just say a tiny bit about how the work came about, because people might be interested. I know we did this earlier project that was the genesis of Day of the Straws called Cultural Law, and I went down and visited Eugene and a lot of the other makers in your kind of community workshop, I suppose you'd call it, and saw people making and steaming. And I have this idea of totem animals from the tops of your sticks. I just love this idea of you were building sticks, and I thought, what if they're imbuing this quality of a creature or some supernatural force or energy or, you know, positive thinking into the stick? And do they use the stick for themselves, or do they give them away? And I was fascinated by this book. Pat, who isn't here but wanted to be here, didn't he? He showed me that picture of a lasting stick, which is hundreds of years old.
Yeah, I think Pat would be more of an expert on that area than asking me. But regarding our workshops, we used to meet before the COVID epidemic. We used to meet one night a week. The choosing of the animal heads is completely up to the person that wants to do it or whatever they choose to do. The eagle there that you saw earlier, that came about by our secretary deciding that we'd get everybody to get a certain skill level. So he brought in blanks one night and a sketch of what he wanted and some instructions on how to do it. And we made it a project that would start at approximately around September, and it was to be ready for Christmas. But I think there was only about 4 ready for Christmas, and the rest went on into the new year, because it was very new to a lot of us. From my point of view, it was completely alien to me. I'd never done anything like that before. And in the end, as you see, it worked out for me. So it's a sharing of skills. One of the more important things, of course, is the chat on the night. Some nights I'd go and I wouldn't do anything. I'd go around talking to people for the night, sharing what went on during the week, and the cup of tea at the end of the night is more important than any of the work sometimes, I think, because a lot of our group are older people. They're delighted to get out of the house, come down, have a chat, even if they do no work, and there's awfully a lot of banter goes on as well. So it's psychologically, it's good for people.
Great. So, yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful work. Beautiful work.
Thank you.
Absolutely lovely. Yeah.
Show and tell is my favorite thing, and you just don't get it on Zoom. So thanks very much.
Welcome.
Lovely. Yeah.
Owen, I'm a massive fan of your work, as you know. I'd love if you could talk a little bit about the kind of work that you do and the content in this piece that Marie put together.
So I think it's varied. So my day-to-day kind of work is I manage an education centre, and for many years I've been a kind of a folk community archivist for traditions within the travelling community. Everything from kind of customs, from like burials to death, to people engaging on their own health, thinking about the cultural practices. So for years now I've been kind of making sure that I capture as many of those as I can in my day-to-day kind of world. And that's what's led on to some of these pictures. And one thing I don't really describe sometimes is that this thing called a Ewing, and Ewing means the clock. So if you look at any of these pictures, I suppose the traditional practice of where the healing herbs come from works from almost like 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So there's a practice. So there's understanding that people may not be able to read or follow. There's coding in the images of a certain pattern. Circular pattern, so people know where they start and where they move, and then it moves also like the sun. It rises and it rests. So that understanding of people being very proactively engaged in their own healing, I think it's something that the modern society has kind of somewhat forgotten. We kind of come and go, and we just seem to hand over ourselves to someone else. So I think in line with the Day of the Straws is more about people actually being active, not on the surface but also on the deeper levels of themselves.
Back in history or prehistoric times, well, the resources which they would have used would have been all local. There'd have been no international, you had no international travel at that time in relation to medicine. It would have been all local. They had the local medicine men and women, but then there would have been the spiritual element of it, where you had the shaman and the witch doctor warding off the negative energies. Some would believe that an illness has a spirit and that you have to ward off the evil spirits. I mean, really, what they were doing, they'd be working with people's energies, and they'd be picking up on low or high energy within the system. There'd be herbalists, but there'd be spiritual healers as well, and the shaman. And the shaman, it would be to ward off the negative energies and remove the spirit of the illness.
And I also have to say that the images you selected I was quite delighted. And you seem to have picked the ones that really kind of told their own stories.
Yeah, no, it works really well. And I guess that overall theme of looking at protection today and protection back then, and the rich history which you draw from. And what did you think of the way Marie edited the photos with the other contemporary images?
I quite like that, because I think especially when people think about traditions, especially within anything to do with the tribal community or the collective Irish community, it's very retrospective. It's like what we used to do and so this used to happen, and then actually once you start peering across that level, like there's as many divinational, healing, ritualistic practices are still ongoing now. It's just that people communicate them very differently, or when we do engage them, we don't engage with them on a mass communal level. We do it in a solitary nuclear way. And so why they have shifted, they most certainly haven't gone away.
Well, the core, I guess, of what it means to be a Druid today, because it's different from the Iron Age, is to care for the earth and her creatures. To care for the earth and her creatures. We actually take an oath when we do our initiation. We take an oath to care for the earth and her creatures. So that's probably the most important thing. And in this time, the only difference is we've extended our rituals and our service to everybody. We used to just have our own private thing. Now we offer it freely to whoever comes. I am Archdruid of Tribe of the Oak. I'm the Archdruid. I think what actually led me to Druidism, and this is interesting, I think, I was a Sufi for 8 years. I lived in an ashram, did all that. And then I left the ashram, and for 5 years, only spent time with Native Americans and did Native American ceremonies, studied with Native American elders. And one day, one of them said to me, "It's really wonderful that you're honoring our ancestors, but you need to honor your own." And I had no idea what that meant. Who are my ancestors? My grandparents? I thought about it and thought about it. And that made me go back to my grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, all the way back. And then gradually I realized that I was a pagan.
My own experience of anything that comes from, we'll say, people who have gone beyond us, our stories, our, we'll say, anything that comes from our history, it conjures up some form of mysticism and some form of often kind of more scary kind of sounds or images in my own mind. And I would always kind of go to the place of the positive as opposed to the negative. And for me, it would be a very kind of a positive experience of mysticism. It would be something that would bring images of light and sounds of beauty and beautiful harmonies. So there was lots of things that went on in my mind around it. But the whole thing for me really had to represent the hope, because I do have faith, because I do feel that there's a greater plan and that there is a higher power.
Your collaboration with Marie was one of the most interesting, because she provided you with words and emotions, and then you provided vocals, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Which was kind of incredible, and I I didn't remember that that's how ye had done it. I think they're one of the most powerful vocals in the work. It has both a bit of the like haunting, a bit of a haunting feel to it, but then a real kind of like hopeful, spiritual feel to it. So it's kind of interesting that that's where you were kind of coming from.
It was so great to see just how everything connects to me. Like, you know, as a folklorist, I constantly see that thread that's throughout history and time. And a lot of my work is very modern, but it's so fascinating to see how much people actually connected with it. And that kind of, I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't.
Yeah, I suppose I was fascinated by that sense of, you spoke about contagion, and I can't get my head around in terms of the two definitions of. I remember when we asked you, you had a really beautiful, succinct definition that you might share with us.
Yeah, sure. I think it's contagious and contaminated. So, and I'm trying to remember exactly what I said. I think it was something along the lines that not all contaminated things are contagious, but all contagious things are contaminated. Yeah, so thinking about that and that notion of what contagious and contaminated mean, and that it can be, we tend to think of it as a negative thing, but it can be a very positive thing too. And I think we tend to focus on the negative, that something that is contagious or contaminated, that's not always a bad thing. Hybridity is something that can be very good and very beautiful. I think this is a great example of that.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Mm.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Plague itself would have given it some form of definition, but the mystery virus or the mystery plague or the mystery disease. So the newspaper headlines were constantly referring to the mystery behind it.
Like my own grandparents, I mean, they were around the time of the 1919 flu, you know, and they had 2 children who died during it. And then, you know, like at the beginning of the year, say they had 3 children. My grandmother was expecting a 4th. And then 1 child died, 1 was born, and another child in kind of 6 months. And they, all they had to cope with that these people they weren't wealthy, but they had enough. They could have gone to the doctor, but there was nothing that could be done. You know, the little girl went to school, you know, with ribbons in her hair, and she got ill. And
Karina, you were contributed in your own creative way through vocals, and then you opened the door in the project, like, to loads of really interesting people who then contributed in such different ways and such different things.
My experience of Marie's work was where I kind of based my trust level.
Yeah.
In that I knew that the people would be taken care of and respected. And then because of lockdown, it was an opportunity whereby phone conversations allowed people to be different. It allowed them to open up to their, you know, things that really interested them. And I felt that they'd have really something valuable to contribute because of their own journeys, you know.
Yeah. I was talking about coping with isolation and boredom and that sort of thing, neither of which do I have great problems with. I'm not antisocial. You know, I'm quite reasonably gregarious, but I can deal with being on my own. I think partly for the greater part of my working life, I was at sea, and at least half of that I was a ship's captain, which is an isolating occupation. You know, you can't be too matey with your officers and crew, and you got to cope with the fact that there's a lot of standing by to wait. You know, you've got to be there, you've got to be available, you've got to do the difficult bits, but you never know. Some of the difficult bits will appear out of nowhere. You know, a fog will come down, and the mate will call you up on the bridge and say, you know, I can't see where I'm going. Your problem, skipper, and you have to deal with that. But, you know, in between the little dramas, there's a lot of just being there.
Incredible, like John, Bernice, like everyone was. I got so much out of those couple of weeks. I got to talk to so many incredible people in such a short space of time. And there was something about it being on the phone that we were both so comfortable that the conversation could go anywhere. And
That's right.
And it was good, I think, to find something in that time
Yeah.
that actually worked, that wasn't superficial, that was like a good.
It was very authentic. It was very authentic. And you see, I knew then when I got the feedback, it was lovely like to hear them be concerned about how it was going to come out and to have a sense of, we'll say, ownership. I know Evelyn was thrilled, John was thrilled, Bernie was thrilled, Tony was delighted. Tony loves for his he loves to discuss things to the nth degree about how good or bad it was, when in actual fact, like, Tony is a lyricist really in so many ways. Like, he's such an incredible, man to put words together. So he constantly considers everything he says, even when it's done.
Yeah. I get that though. I'm terrified for doing that afterwards, just over analyzing. So I totally relate. But really, was I okay?
Yeah. Tell me the truth now, really. What do you think yourself?
Yeah. Cool. I'm trying to think what else would be. So we covered
Moyle Rovers GA Club in County Tipperary, one of the new COVID-19 testing centres, now in operation across the country. The facility near Clonmel is being used as a drive-through centre for testing
Nothing
for the
like
coronavirus
this has
by
ever
appointment
happened
only.
before.
It's one of
While
35 new
COVID-19 may
sites
have
being
felt
rolled out
surreal at
nationwide
times,
as
the
demand
economic
for
impact
tests
will be very
increases.
real indeed. This latest ESRI report says it's expecting the impact to be much more extreme than it previously thought.
An average wait time of between
It
4
paints
and
three
5
scenarios,
days.
but its baseline sees the economy shrinking by 12% this year. It sees unemployment averaging 17%. Both figures are worse than official forecasts. Not a time then, perhaps, to roll back on the financial life support provided by government.
There are now 906 confirmed cases of the virus in the Republic. Significant died. Northern Ireland, there are 128 cases, including 2 deaths. Overall, it means there are more than 1,000 cases on the island. Over the weekend,
ESRI believes the economy also needs a stimulus, which could be directed towards investment in social housing and environmental projects. The country has been struggling to catch up in recent years. This too will have to be paid for eventually.
Clearly, in the longer term, issue the air projects is too hard to steering the road. I think the key issue here is the role of making up our
Bernice, I'd love to ask you what you thought of the project as a whole, or what in the project that stood out to you when you went through it.
I had many favourites, so I suppose it is unfair to name any particular one, but I kind of felt, it was for all people and all levels and that. But I loved the section about the virus itself and the piece about all the all the different voices coming at you, because I felt that was the way our minds were reflecting at the moment. We were all sort of being bombarded with information from all areas. And there was another lovely piece I enjoyed as well. I think it was a Father Thomas O'Shea wrote a letter to somebody as to how he was getting on. And I said it could be the present time or it could be the future. So, and the area, the separation, there was a lot of bits in that I could relate to as well, kind of nice bits and pieces and things you could dig into and delve into any time. So I got great enjoyment out of it, really.
Great. Bernice contributed the piece "Hello from the Dog," which was a big hit with all dog lovers.
It's a very real, meaningful piece. I've seen it. I just thought it was beautiful.
I loved it too. I loved the piece by the dog. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's a great way of telling the story. It captivates you.
Hello from the Dog was, I suppose, something I'm obsessed with dogs anyway, and I love dogs, so I write lots of little pieces about dogs. But I thought Hello from the Dog was something that there was so much talk about people getting animals and things during the lockdown, but I always kind of look at animals and dogs from I won't say human perspective, but I think we don't give them credit that they're a lot more intelligent than we think. And I just kind of started writing through my dog's, you know, perspective and his mind and what he could say and try and help people as they were going along, you know, and that he was kind of sitting there observing and commenting. So that's how I was doing that. You know, so I just hoped people would enjoy it and basically get what I was trying to say, really, from the dog's perspective.
The dog has published a book, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, that was my last dog. He wrote a fundraising book. He kept a diary for a year about his adventures. His name was William. So the book was just called me William. And I kept his diary for a year. And all the kids in the park come along and they say, God, did he really write a book? And they'd be looking and they'd say, he did. And the new children then would come to the park and they'd bring the other children up and they'd say, that's William, he wrote a book. You know, so.
I read what someone wrote. Katie Holly was the person who wrote it, I think. Yes, right?
Yeah, Katie is here.
And another story was very good because I thought it was like kids must say what the heck is happening.
Through the course of our conversations, Marie and Kate and myself, we just started talking about what children must be thinking, particularly of a certain age group. Younger children just must have thought it was bonkers what was going on. I spoke to some college friends of mine who have children aged from 2 up to 9 years, and just discussed with them what kind of language they were using to explain what was happening. And that's how the progression of the story then developed.
But I remember I spent an hour on the phone to my mother. It was hilarious because my mother is a retired primary school teacher, so I had to get some serious help with I think I got it okay, but I forget it now. Rock Leach or Dieka, or I forget the name. We had so much fun trying to get the correct pronunciation in Irish, but it was very funny.
I asked Kate for help with the Irish also because I'm not a fluent speaker, so I had to ask her for the Irish for invisible, which is Dieka.
Yeah. So my mother is also Owen's mother because he's my brother.
Yeah, wow.
So it's the same person who advised us all.
And she's very strict.
It's lovely. Lovely.
Yeah, I think
Well done.
especially there's something about the tin whistle that's quite haunting. It's really nice, Evelyn. And it just
Evelyn, there's a lovely story. There's a lovely story, isn't there, to do with that tune?
Yeah, it's called Hag of the Churn, and it was known for families would make butter, and when they'd be churning the butter, that this tune would be played to keep away the witches, and that if you were a witch and that if you were a woman and had left the room while they were churning the butter and this tune was being played, that would be a tell-all that you were possibly a witch. So, which I thought was really interesting.
But you played a second piece, which was the Fairy Fort.
Yeah. So my great uncle is a composer. He's passed away. Vincent Broderick, and he would write these amazing tunes. He had one tune called Around the Fairy Fort, and it was about these tunes would come to him, and it would be in a situation. So he would be walking around And it was this particular tune, walking around the fields, and there was a fairy fort, and a tune came to him, so he called it Around the Fairy Fort.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember there was a saying that you wanted to go into a fairy fort.
Yeah.
Oh, Bridget.
Was that true? Is that true? You weren't, because I remember when I was younger and up in Longford, we did see a fairy fort, but we were told never to go in there with bad luck or something. You'd die.
Oh, where I'm from now in Galway, there's a good few around, and the stories are as long as the day about them, and how to get out with them, and to turn your clothes inside out, and to leave coins if you're really, really badly done up. And but I think they're a mix of superstition, of awareness of past tragedies, of lost, and they're just powerful.
Sometimes you can see a circle, and you kind of see stones around it. Just first thing you would straight away you go, oh, don't go near there anyway, you know. But then sometimes you wouldn't see it at all. But then it's as you're walking, like there could be a tree, and it could be kind of slanted down in the ground. There's a little kind of a curve. It'll be like a different shape. There wouldn't have to be stones around it at all. It's the shape. It takes its own form, and you kind of know that it's it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just know. So I will stay away.
And maybe, Helen, to ask you in terms of, because I know that there could be very many things that you could have contributed to this work. And so what led you to write, because you wrote that piece, didn't you, and emailed it to me?
Yes, the reason is that, you know, the predecessor of the Tua de Danann was called Nevid, and he was a magical higher being, but he came down in a mist one night over Cove, and where he came down was Lis Aniski. Lis means a fairy fort, and Ishkin is water. You know, when any inhabitants came to Ireland, they needed water. And so a lot of the mythical mythology of Ireland is based around water. So going back to basics, he and Amergin was a poet, but he was also a very powerful person. They created a circular wind that incorporated two spirals over Cove. And they said that the Cove would never be taken by any outsider. It would never be taken by anyone. Even though we're the second biggest harbour in the world, it's never been taken. And it is because there are archives all over Europe, all over America, and all over the world that state that if you take Cove, because of the circular wind, the electromagnetic fields, the actual magical aspect of Cove, then your family would absolutely pass away. All your loved ones would pass away. That was ancient, you know. So nobody's ever was going to do that.
That it's mentioned in the Bible, in the Old Testament, five times by the Isaiah and Proverbs, that palmistry was there for thousands of years now. And even I was looking again, the laws of Manu, written 4000 BC, stated that no money should pass for the reading of palmistry. So I think that you're showing also my video there as well, on reading the palm.
And Willie, how did you, because you read my palm over Zoom, and you actually managed to do it. How did you find doing it online?
A bit scary, because you the point about reading the hand is also the prints, like your fingerprints, like you don't see these finer lines as you would when you're with the person, and also it's a very personal thing. People come in and they want to find out. Most people, like when they want to go to the doctor, want to be well, and I think the people who want to go in and do palmistry want to hear good news. And the one thing that palmistry cannot do is, like, they can't say this will happen.
I have had lots and lots of psychic things happen to me over the years. Things that I see them before they actually happen, and then the exact thing would happen. Like little warnings, you know. And I would dream, my dreams would be very psychic. What I dream of would actually happen. day or two after. In the beginning, when I was younger, I didn't understand it, and it frightened me because I thought whatever it was going to happen, that it was me, it was because of me, because I had dreamt it. But then it was happening so often that I kind of got used to it. And as I got older then, I learned about it and read about it, and I realised that no, this was a psychic ability, like a sixth sense that I was born with, and I just accepted it.
All the photographs that I've taken when I've been on walks, and I grew up in Portlaw, County Waterford, and Lord Waterford had an enormous estate. And when we went inside the main gate, there were two beautiful meadows, and I took loads of photographs of the grasses there and all the different trees. And even I would wait, I took photographs of the same tree, the 4 seasons of the year. And nothing, there was no development in this estate. It was just beautiful. And it's mainly when I'm out walking that I would take the photographs, you know. The nature ones are my favourites.
I just really love the piece of music, Ashley. I couldn't believe it when you sent it on. And I'd love to ask you that, because I don't know anything about that piece. What made you choose that one, Ashley, to send in?
The Day of the Straws made me think about folklore and oral tradition. I started to think about where oral tradition comes into play within the songs that I know and the tunes that I play, and that piece just jumped out to me. It is a sean-nós piece, I suppose. It would traditionally have been sung unaccompanied, and with sean-nós pieces, you know, they'd be passed down orally from generation to generation as the story of the Day of the Straws would have been. So that was my reasoning for choosing that one. And I thought the final result was really moving. The combination of the pictures, the images with the music felt quite powerful to me. So thank you.
Well, thanks for trusting it. Thank you for the process. It's such a beautiful piece.
Thank you. Likewise.
Is frischki so chlauer stick, Untitled
So I suppose maybe I should say something about how we never worked together before, but I just really, really enjoyed collaborating with you. And I'm aware that there was all this material. There was so much material and like little clusters, and then you basically built a home for it and you designed how it looks and feels, you know. So this whole sense of, you know, all the contributors' material being kind of gifted to you to then say, okay, how can we make this the best it can ever be? So I just found it really exciting. Like, you know, I really, really did. And I wondered, was it like a bit scary having this avalanche of material that came to you? It's kind of what it was like. I never thought of it from your point of view. What's it like then, having all this kind of, you know, masses of stuff?
This was great. I really enjoyed this project. I love people's stories. It's something that I would be very interested in. I think I didn't get a scope of what everything is there until the very end, when I started kind of going based on the different categories, different folders where you put everything there. So I think that's when I was like, okay, there really is loads. You could tell that all the stories were quite personal to whoever shared them. So that was the pressure of the work, because there were so many people involved. I was like, okay, these people are there, they have to be happy with it. So yeah, it was really nice to read the feedback then, yeah. And I think it was really good that you've built the structure and you had a very clear vision from how you wanted the experience for the audience to be like. That was a really good guidance for me. And also, because you're a visual artist, I think you were thinking about it as an artwork. So you didn't have that kind of predisposition of, okay, this has to be on the website.
That's really interesting, because that was an important moment for me when we spoke with Kate, and you really got the sense of when people land, they're in an art piece. So they might be a bit bewildered and they kind of go, oh, hold on, what's happening here? But the work itself, all the material is kind of, I suppose, it's exciting, and people are curious that they take the leap of faith and they kind of delve into it, because it's all about the vision for the work. You know, it's like we had all this amazing material, but if there isn't a means to envision it publicly, you know, it's like it's locked in a drawer, you know, and people open the drawer and it's kind of covered in dust and nobody can see it, you know, or the risk of it becoming like a kind of an archive, and it being like you're going into a museum and it's things that are very distant in the past, you know, and there's no kind of energy or risk or challenge or scariness in it, because that's real life and all that stuff's there. So you didn't allow it to be that, you know, you kind of said, no, okay, we're gonna make this as an art piece, live, vibrant now.
The idea of the pandemic and actually the chaos and everything that everybody was experiencing, and I wanted to kind of translate that with the graphics. So that's why I was like the animated GIFs, and I tried to animate as many things possible to be like just something they're digging into. Oh, check this out, look at this, look at, you know, you don't have to. And it's also the way how you think about it. Okay, maybe this is the next thing I'm going to look at, maybe I'm going to ignore it, you know. I think that's kind of up to you. It's just that kind of nudging idea that it's there.
I love that. And it's kind of like, wasn't it a sense of, you know, there was a commonality through all these different ways of experiencing life at that time. And it was frenetic and still is, really. But the work has that sense of a deep-rooted commonality of we're all trying to cope and trying our best to survive through all different ways and methods. And one thing might not be obvious. So you might, like on the work, you might press a button and it leads you into this whole new world. And that's what we were all kind of encountering. And I think the other thing is, people were saying to me, is it fictional? Or is it all true to life? And I think that was really interesting, because like when you go online, you never really know what's true and what's not. And you have to kind of take that on board when you're surfing the net. And then in pandemic and in lockdown, we're still encountering that of constant kind of working out what's truthful and what's not, as well as all the kind of, you know, hoaxes and everything. And yet, I suppose, somehow in the work you anchored that. You anchored the sense of the freneticness of what the internet is, and when you inhabit that world, how it can be, and what we were getting with the pandemic of all this kind of chaos. But it's all real to life experience. So everything in the work is drawn from, I suppose, what people have lived.
Yeah.
So nothing is fictional, except for the really interesting part. The only part that someone challenges in the work is the day the straw story, and that very thing of itself drawn from the 1830s. And I just love that people say, no, I don't believe that, and yet everything else, the most fantastical things that people are sharing through the art piece, it's all non-fiction, it's all true to life. And so it's like this magical kind of whirlwind of life experience matched against historical record and fact and, you know, recorded data, and that's the bit that someone challenges in the work, that kind of historical data, which I love.
I love that. I was thinking that would be great to start with actually challenging the whole idea of the day of the straws. Just be like, maybe that did not happen.